So, welcome to today's episode of NAMI Maine Talks. We are so excited to have you join us today to talk about the incredible project, The Simple Emotions. And I would love to kick the conversation off with you telling me a little bit about who you are and what The Simple Emotions is.
Yes, so hello everybody. My name is Cam. I'm currently a junior at Babson College, and as Jill mentioned, I'm the founder of the Simple Emotions, which is a mental health clothing brand that is dedicated to sharing stories and partnering with other mental health organizations to help advocate and fundraise for them. So I started the Simple Emotions about like 3.5 years ago, when I was only 16 and a half, where at that time I was a junior in high school. And my whole high school career and athletic career was really a mess, because I faced many different obscure physical health challenges, which obviously trickled down into my mental health challenges. And then being a high school male, I often fell into the stigma around mental health. I didn't want to talk about it. I fought my parents about going to therapy, even though I should have. And then luckily, I eventually did. And then on the back half of my physical challenges, when I still experience mental health challenges, I saw a bunch of other mental health clothing brands out there. And it's like, you know what? I'm young enough. I love business. Let's give it a shot. And then that's how I created the Simple Emotions, putting my in-depth personal story behind the brand. And then as I grew, from just being a junior in high school to now being a junior in college, it's gotten to places that I really couldn't have imagined that I'd be at.
That is so wonderful and such a fabulously interesting start to have started something that's grown so wonderfully when you were so young, being just in high school to start with. And thinking about how, you landed on a clothing brand. Clothing really, to our mind, sits at this really wonderful intersection between, the story of mental health, but also clothing is such a core part of self-expression and how people express things like values that are important to them. Um, how did you, is there anything else to how you landed on clothing brands specifically? And how do you feel that being able for people to wear, like, these really important messages, is something that your brand is able to bring into the world?
Yeah, so one of the things that I wanted to try to do when I was first starting is to allow people a simple way to express themselves. Because with my traditional like my traditional Simple Emotions merchandise line, where it's like a corresponding emotion that you can wear, so like simply happy, simply sad, etc. I'm never somebody that wants to put everything out there like front and center. So if we feeling like having simply sad or simply happy, just as subtly in the back, like it's there, you're expressing yourself, you're showing people how you feel, was really a perfect way to help impact people like me, where I don't want to wear something that maybe takes up the whole back, but it's still there and you're still doing the purpose. And then once I transitioned to partnering with mental health organizations, that's when we can really put the whole message on the back, because each foundation has such an important message they want to advocate for. So it should be front and center like that. And you explained like the meaning of clothing perfectly. Like style is really all about what the person perceives it as. And that's really what I see as like your emotions as well. Like the emotions are what you perceive it as or what you put into it. Um, and then having the clothing represent how you feel and how you even just see your style is a perfect like combination of the two.
Absolutely. And you mentioned your work with mental health agencies and foundations. How did the idea, come to be that you started really highlighting and platforming these mental health agencies and organizations through your brand?
Yeah, so as we were growing, I really wanted to make a direct impact. Obviously, advocating and sharing your story is like needed, and more people should be doing it now. But I wanted to try to actually fundraise for organizations. And since I'm not technically a nonprofit, I'm a social enterprise. I, the money I make from my traditional line isn't donated back, even though it's going back into the brand, which is advocacy effort. It's not affecting other organizations. So I figured let's reach out to different mental health organizations, create a section on my website called the Foundation Spotlight, where I share like a little blog of what they do, and then their merchandise will be seen on that same page. Um, so we can use my audience and their audience to try to boost sales, which boosts fundraising for them as well. And I was lucky enough that I collaborated with NAMI Maine, the Yellow Tulip Project, and just next Friday, I'll be making merchandise with the Shine Initiative based in Worcester, Mass. Um, it's really a great combination of a bunch of organizations that do different things around mental health, uh, getting a wider reach in New England, and then again, like just actually making a monetary impact within the mental health community.
We are so excited for the collaboration between NAMI Maine and the Simple Emotions. It has really been such a wonderful process, and we've appreciated how thoughtful you are in presenting this brand and this company and really allowing the collaborations to speak to the work that the organizations are doing. Just thinking of, the messaging that we incorporated into our collaboration, that mental health is simply health, is something that, especially in the current landscape of the world, we're really working hard to emphasize for people that mental health is such an important component of your overall health and that it's just as important of a component as physical health. And so to be able to bring that message out in a creative way such as this has been really, really fabulous. Um, so so I would love to hear, so you mentioned being, on a college campus. You are currently in your junior year. I would love to hear how having this clothing brand and being an advocate for mental health in your community has shaped your college experience and how you kind of interact with that college landscape through this, like, now you're not just a student on campus, now you're also a business owner and someone who is, like, advocating for mental health in every aspect of their life. How has that kinda shaped your college experience?
It's definitely made it a lot more special, because when you're in college, you want to. No, generally, you go through your years, and once you get to like, around junior year, you look for an internship, and then senior year, you look for a career. So obviously, it's very important. I'm not saying I'm not doing that, but continuously growing, and especially in a space that is so important, it really makes me want to stick there. So the whole like mindset of where you're gonna go after college has really kind of shifted for me. Because rather than just get like a high level corporate job, just still be amazing if anyone's at a corporate job looking, you can hire me. Um,
We love a plug like that.
to try to stick into a like still the mental health industry because I know how important the work is. Um, I'm fortunate enough to have the skills at such a young age, and obviously there's so much more that I can learn. Um, and then ideally stick with the simple emotions and keep on going and impacting many more people, many more organizations. But I don't want to undermine Babson's effort into keeping that dream alive because it's such a unique school where since it's just a business school and it's one of the best schools to go to for entrepreneurship, they still like help that mindset and push you to reach your entrepreneurial ventures. Um, because with the simple emotions and the work that I've been doing, I was accepted into an an exclusive social impact program that helps you run your venture. Um, I'm also now Peers on Wellness, which encompasses all wellness on school, but I specifically focus on mental health and wellness. And I think having my past experience with mental health foundations and bringing them on campus, and even just my experience and verbiage around it, it's really shown so far that combining that with the other peers on wellness, it hopefully will make a lasting impact after my years at Babson.
Absolutely have no doubt that it will. And you bring up an interesting point being in, in this school and in this environment that's very specifically like business oriented and entrepreneur oriented. Um, it's, I feel like a conversation that you know, tends to either go by the wayside or get almost commercialized in a sense, the taking care of your mental health when you're someone who's pursuing something entrepreneurial or pursuing a business or creating something in that commerce space. And I think you sit at this really interesting cross section of protecting mental health, but also seeing the side of it of what it means to create and to bring something into the business space and having that be mental health oriented. Do you feel like the conversations you're able to have about mental health and the advocacy you're able to have about mental health on your campus lends to bettering the mental health of people who find themselves trying to be entrepreneurs or pursuing like these business lifestyles?
Yeah, definitely. There can be a lot of toxic self-talk at Babson and even toxic comparison. And like a lot of my friends and peers that have their own ventures or even just want to strive for like a really excellent job at like a top four firm or something. Um, I have found that like my conversation around mental health has eased their stress a little bit, and maybe not ease their stress, but just ease their perception of it. Because obviously we're all going to be stressed and anxious as college students, um, but just how they view themselves in reaching that, like the shutting down the not good enough talk, the shutting down the working excessively hard, time management where they work 24 hours a day. But kind of interestingly, I found that even though I'm I do a great job at helping my friends, helping my peers around that, I really sometimes I forget to help myself. Because as I honestly feel like the Simple Emotions is at like the peak right now, and hopefully keep on growing with new collaborations and new opportunities. But often when with new opportunities and like it's better, there's more stress and then I feel worse, which is kind of counterintuitive because I know that what I do I should apply to myself, but it's also hard. So I don't want to undermine that either. Like even most recently, a few weeks ago, I was becoming very stressed, and for the first time, I had rashes on my legs, like bad rashes that took up like my whole inner thigh. Like what am I doing? So then it really acted as like a good time for me to step back and look and reflect at like everywhere I am now. Not to undermine the anxiety because obviously anxiety will anxiety, and it's really hard to cope with. It's easier said than done, but also for like people that are still in the mental health field or even just love helping other people, it's important to help yourself too. Because when I was in that few week span where I was really getting hard on myself, like excessively hard, I wasn't helping others as well either as I normally am. And obviously, when I'm focused and passionate about advocating for mental health, it's important for me to focus on my mental health first. So I know I can make an impact on others because you can only make an impact on others if you make an impact on yourself first.
That is a really, really important point, and I think it's something that all of, us folks working, whether it's at mental health agencies or, folks working with clinicians or providers or, even in schools and counselors, all these places where mental health is at the forefront of whether it's your job or your life. It can be really hard to take that own advice yourself. Certainly not the first person we've heard that from, and it happens to all of us. But, especially coming into, you talked about the last few weeks and how you registered those changes in yourself and, realized it was associated with your stress and anxiety. I think, we have a lot of people feeling that way also going into, times of year like the holidays and times that are, especially busy for like a college student coming up on finals and then, or having, a business going into the Christmas season and things like that. So it really can compound. And I think it's wonderful to take a step back and to realize, okay, I'm advocating for the better mental health of like my community and for others. I'm part of my community and I'm part of others, So you definitely it's super important to take care of your mental health as well. Um shifting a little bit to some of your endeavors in the community through the simple emotions. I know you've joined us for some of our NAMI Maine events. We've, seen you at things like the Portland Sea Dogs, where we had our mental health night. You recently, I know, were at the Noah Khan show. So, just really, really tying in all the New England faves. You're really like culturally New England, like absolutely checking all the boxes. Um, how is it going into the community and interacting with people at those events and having those conversations in person?
Oh, it's absolutely incredible. Because every time I speak to somebody, I learn something new. I learn how different like pillars of mental health can be perceived. Because when I talk about my anxiety and I hear a story of someone else's anxiety, I'll be like, "Oh, I never heard of it that way," which I really appreciate because it's hard to be vulnerable like that, especially just walking up to like a table at an event. Um, and I also just love sharing my story with a wide range of audiences, um, because even if it just impacts like one or two people at that event, that's really what I'm going for. I remember there was a time I gave a presentation at a school, and it was at a high school, so obviously not all high schoolers are going to be tuned in. But afterwards, one kid came up to me and he was like visibly like impacted. Like he said, "Cam, thank you so much for being so vulnerable, sharing your story." And then he went on to share his, and that is like why I do this. Because even though it was just one person, I know that one person got something very important out of it, and there are probably many more that just don't want to come up, which is okay as well. Um, and I also, like you said, being a New Englander, I love doing events that impact people in New England that we appreciate. Um, like the different sports teams, like I've done stuff with the Worcester Red Sox, the Boston Red Sox, the New England Revolution. You mentioned the Sea Dogs. And then a few weeks ago, I went to a Maine Mariners game because it's really just so much fun to talk to fellow New Englanders from different states, especially Mariners. They're so much more friendly than, than people from Massachusetts. And I know that because you are probably more friendly than me sometimes in the day to day life. Uh, but it's just so cool to make a direct impact in my community because I really do identify as a New Englander. And um, as you mentioned, going to the Noah Khan benefit concert that supported the Busy Hip Project and Red Sox Foundation on the 20th, it was really absolutely incredible because I viewed that as like one of the biggest events that I've been to so far. It's a great headliner name, a great, amazing cause, and obviously a lot of anxiety around that. But what I found is no matter the scale of the event, the people are the same people. You have the same conversations, um, and it just shows that like there's a little bit of progress going on in the conversation around mental health. Because whether you're at a concert, at a walk, at a sporting event, people that come up to your table still want to talk about it and are still interested, which is an optimistic outlook on it. Um, and even a little bit selfishly, but a good selfishly, is the people actually liking what the simple emotions does and like, oh, this is so great. We need more people like this. Thank you for doing this. Um, Often I don't think it's all that great because I'm my biggest critic. So hearing other people say that is really reassuring and it really keeps the drive going. Because doing stuff online, like doing advocacy online and even seeing positive feedback online, is still good and important to do, but in-person events is really so much different.
We really have a lot of the same experiences when we go and table and bring our resources to different places in the community. And, it can be very easy to kind of start compartmentalizing the efforts in mental health to things like, advocacy at the state or national level, these really big overarching ideas and concepts and policies and initiatives. But then when you talk to those individuals in the community and you're able to have a conversation about your story or their story or the ability for them to be vulnerable in that moment or just providing them resources that they might need at another moment or for a loved one, It really is such a grounding experience, and it brings you back to the core of why, we do this work and why we advocate for mental health and why it's so important to have those productive, like healthy one-on-one conversations with people because it can be easy to get lost in, okay, well, did this legislative, policy advance, or what's, happening in advocacy, or what's happening at the state level. And it's really wonderful to have those opportunities to go to events and get connected to like individual New Englanders. And and just to speak to, this kind of identity as a New Englander, it's such a unique place. And it's such, even if, our friends in Massachusetts are maybe a little more grumpy than us, that's all right. We love you equally. But it really is such an interesting interconnectedness between a group of states that I think you don't always see throughout the country. And I think taking the approach that you have, that you are like, you identify as a New Englander, that you're going throughout New England to have these experiences and spread these messages. I think it really speaks to like how, our states interconnect and kind of identify as one community together. So I would love to know if there's anything, as you look toward the future, as you look toward what growth means for the simple emotions, is there any like upcoming, goals that you have? Are there any particular places you want to see the simple emotions go? Are there any places you want to see that simple emotions logo pop up? Are there any, exciting goals that you have? Even if they're pie in the sky, who knows if they'd happen? Is there anything you're excited about for the growth of the simple emotions?
So I think we're on a great trajectory on reaching many different mental health organizations, because I feel like it's kind of a little bit of a snowball where when you get a few, then you can get a few more, and it keeps on going. And I obviously want to make a huge impact in New England, but I don't want to limit just to New England. Um, like partnering with other organizations, maybe in like California or the Midwest, really anywhere in America, would be really amazing to get like a bigger reach. Um, because the stigma isn't like just in New England or just in one state; it's everywhere, and it can be better or worse in different states. Um, and I'd love to try to make an impact in where the stigma is a little bit more prevalent, but also not to discount the ones that maybe it's less prevalent because it is still there. You see it every day.
Mhm.
Um, and like the high in the sky, I would love to create an area on my website where we have people stories and celebrity stories, but all on the same level. Because especially Noah does a great job at talking about this, talking about his struggles, not really viewing himself as better than anyone else. Because at the end of the day, he's a person, I'm a person, you're a person. And I think making a platform that has just celebrity stories like our stories intertwined can help show that everybody struggles with mental health issues. And just because you have 100 million followers doesn't mean that your story is more important or like the guideline. Not that it's not important, but it's all on the same level.
Mhm.
So continuing to work with different like artists and celebrities, sharing their stories, and then combining them all together can act as like a great way for like you could like go on the website, scroll, see like, oh, this is John Doe, this is Jane Doe, this is Taylor Swift. Like what?
Yeah.
But then it's all on the same level, which
Yeah.
I personally think that would make it a lot more meaningful than having like a celebrity stories all on the top and you scroll and then down push at the bottom everyone else's. Um, and I also want to try to make a big impact in the music industry as well. Kind of continuing on the work that I did with the Busy Head Project and Noah at the benefit concert. Growing on that would really be amazing because I use music as a great way to cope with my anxiety or depression, because I really connect with the lyrics, with the songs, And there are a lot of other artists um, that do have similar meanings in their music. And I think working with them would be amazing to kind of talk more about the mental health connection to music and bringing that into the simple emotions and even happier music. Because normally when you think of music and mental health, you think of like sadder songs, but it is still important to listen to happy music when you're happy. I don't want I sometimes forget about that, but I don't want anyone else to forget about that because it's important to connect something to every emotion and not just try to fix and and help negate the negative ones. You want to help amplify the positive ones when you're there as well with the different skills that you have. So yeah, that's um, a little bit more of like an ambitious outlook on the simple emotions, but I definitely am looking forward to working with other mental health organizations, which is a lot more likely.
Amazing. Those I look forward to seeing everything come to fruition in all ways that it does. And I would love to just, have you is there anything particular that you would like to share with our listeners or anything that you think is important for people to know about the simple emotions or your efforts that we haven't touched on yet today?
I guess I'll just really quickly go over the story of my experiences, my mental health experiences that created simple emotions.
Yeah.
Um, so when I was a freshman in high school, I was recruited to play prep school hockey, which is like one of the highest level of high school hockey that you can play, and it can segue you into maybe a college career or wherever it can take you. So it was really exciting. I was going to be one of four freshmen that would play on the varsity level, which is really like unlikely at that high of a level compared to like public school. And then that same year, I developed an obscure breathing condition where whenever I would run or skate or like any cardio, I would start to cough really, really violently, preventing me from breathing. Um, and that kind of turned more into just like a regular day-to-day physical health um, injury, if you say, rather than just a traditional injury that could put you out of a sport, because it was hard to do regular exercise, stay in shape normally, just not just like practicing hockey or playing in games. So then I went to Children's Hospital, amazing hospital, one of the best in the world. But unfortunately, after 17 different procedures, 15 doctors, and 15 medicines, they couldn't figure out what was wrong. And obviously, over a year and a half of those testings, that really took a huge toll on my mental health. And what didn't help is at one point they thought it was a neurological like issue. So they gave me a medicine called gabapentin, which kind of acts as a neurological block, which has a side effect of suicidal thoughts. And unfortunately, already being in such a dark space, with going through that in itself, experiencing that side effect was just a horrible combination of the two, um, which really made me like experience like this mental health issues for like the first time, and really brought it to the conversation where the conversations then weren't like the conversations we were just having now. They were my mom bawling her eyes out, my dad yelling, not because they don't care about me, but because we don't know how to talk about it. And we all love each other so much that when you talk about something so severe as suicidal thoughts, it's hard just to talk about it normally. So your emotions will go to like polarize on each end, which that was a really hard, even just personal time for me because I felt like I didn't know how to talk about it with my parents because they didn't know how to talk about it. I didn't like, nobody knew the correct way to go about it. And then fortunately, I I was able to go to therapy and then I was able to have the conversations I need to try to get myself in a better headspace and then help my parents too. And they are so much better now with talking about anything surrounding mental health. But then the story isn't over. um, Sophomore year, after I was able to learn a breathing technique um, to negate the breathing condition, um, my first game being able to breathe, I separated my shoulder. So then I
Oh
needed
my
surgery and
goodness.
PT again, putting me out another year. So then junior year, um, after being out for 2 years, my skills just aren't going to be as good as they used to be. And at such a high level, you're not going to be automatically placed on varsity. So junior year, I was on the JV team, which that was just like a big confidence hit because I was supposed to be at varsity at freshman year, and now because of injuries and many setbacks, I had to play on JV, and then I was kind of going through the motions, and then I dislocated the same shoulder I separated, needing surgery and PT again. So the third year in a row, I was injured, and then the doctors were like, "Cam, maybe sports aren't for you anymore," um, which is true because if I got another blow to my shoulder, it'd be very bad. But then I did some reflection, and luckily, with the help that I received from therapy for that 2 year window, sophomore and junior year, I was able to take a little bit of light out of such a dark past 3 years where um, I was like, you know what? Like I said in the beginning of this podcast, I love business. I want to help share my story and help people navigate this crazy world that we live in with around the conversation of mental health. So I started the Simple Emotions, put my story on it, and then I kind of went with it. And then luckily, I am here where I am now and everything that we've talked about.
Is so wonderful, and our whole team has had such a fabulous experience working with you, but I mean, personally, I cannot commend you enough for being able to share your story in a way that really touches on so many things that resonate with people, especially of that age range, especially with things that, things like a family not being able to, have a productive conversation because they just don't have the tools in the toolkit, to have that conversation, and how things like therapy and prioritizing your mental health can bring you, out of the darker spaces of life. So thank you so much for sharing that. And I am so excited that we're able to collaborate together and take some of the, the things that we know from people like you sharing your story and this work in the mental health field, and be able to have this collaboration where we're not only able to be part of your incredible brand, but you're able to support NAMI Maine and what we are able to do in the community with your help. So, thank you again for joining us today. To round out the podcast, I'd love to hear web and socials. Where can people find the Simple Emotions? Let's send people to that website. They need to see the goods.
Yes. So our main website is just thesimpleemotions.shop. And you can find the NAMI Maine's merchandise on the Foundation Spotlight. So all you have to do is type in that URL, click on Foundation Spotlight, and you should see it there along with the amazing blog posts that we have for them as well. You can follow us on Instagram at the.simple.emotions. And those are the main two forms of media that I have. So I would really appreciate if you guys could check out the website, support both of our organizations, and of course, follow me follow me on Instagram.
Amazing. Well, Kim, thank you so much for joining us here today, and we look forward to, seeing how our collaboration blooms.